What did we learn this weekend about the Oklahoma softball team? Well, nothing new except they're a title contender. Like they are every single year. And if they play like they did against Texas this weekend, they're going to win a national championship. That's what we learned. We're going to talk about that and a few other things here on this episode of Quick Slants, a YouTube video series fueled by OU Insider and the Rivals Network. I am Jesse Crittenden, joined by Brian Clinton. And Brian, OU softball hosting Texas at home for a 3-game series, and they come away with a sweep. Some ups and downs, some roller coasters, some really, really good softball sandwiched in the middle of that. And OU softball comes away with 3 wins in 3 games against Texas. And Brian, both to my original point that I think OU will win the title if they play like this, and just from a standpoint of I didn't know what was going to happen this weekend. I wouldn't have predicted a sweep for either team. I don't know. OU comes away with a sweep. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you're thinking.
I was, whatever the level right below shocked is, that Oklahoma pulled off the sweep is kind of where I was at. And it's not necessarily for the fact that I don't believe that the roster is capable of doing it. I mean, this roster is still one of, 2 or 3 in the country that has the argument for most talented. I mean, they may still be right there at the top. But just with how we have seen this team approach some of the bigger series this year and the pressure that we saw them kind of succumb to against, teams like Tennessee, on the road against Alabama, it really felt like this series was going to test them as far as their wherewithal goes. And they stepped up way more than I could have imagined. They got things started fast in every game. They came out the gates firing, which offensively has not been the case. And man, I mean, yes, there were things towards the end, and I'm sure we'll get into some of what happened in yesterday's game. But this team, if this team plays the way that they do, I don't see if they play the way they did against Texas, I don't see anybody that can stand toe to toe with them, because there's just not a juggernaut out there right now.
No, I agree with you, and I think the main thing for me is in addition to the sweep, I think they answered some questions for me. Not only did they answer it emphatically, but they did it against a really elite team, probably the best team they have faced this season. I don't even know where to start, Brian, because there's so many storylines we could talk about. There's so many players we could talk about. I think let's just start with the offense, because you're going into this series thinking, well, Brian, if you actually look at the stats for this team through conference play, they have not been a good offensive team. In a lot of metrics, they have been in the bottom half of the SEC in basically every statistical category on offense. And then you think about what this Texas pitching staff can throw at them. You got Tegan Kavon in the circle. She's been one of the best pitchers in the country. And OU's offense wasn't just great, it was elite. They had no issues with Tegan Kavon, like at all. It's clear that Texas thought they had an advantage with Tegan. They did not. OU played her out of the circle in both game 1 and game 3. OU finishes with 30 hits across the weekend. They go 10 hits in all 3 games. And I think the bigger thing for me, Brian, was it was up and down the lineup. It wasn't just one player leading the way. They got contributions everywhere. They had different players step up in different games. I'm going to take the victory lap because I said on the Oklahoma drill, thank you. I said on the Oklahoma drill, this needed to be an Ilana Agbagiani or an Abby Dayton series. I was like, one of those 2 players has to emerge. They are too good and they have been underperforming for too long. They've got to play well. Ilana Agbagiani, her final stats, 6 for 8 at the plate this weekend, including a grand slam and 5 RBIs in that game 1 win. She was fantastic. She was great in all 3 games, big plays in all 3 games. It was maybe kind of a a law of averages game. She's been kind of below average all season. She gets it. She makes it all back up in one weekend. But you get the 2 home runs from Ella Parker across the weekend. You get big plays from Abby Dayton, from Gabby Garcia, from Nelly Mack and Rome Marinas. It's just the fact that this offense had been underperforming all year, and they come out emphatically and do it against one of the best pitchers in the country. That answers a question for me about whether this offense can do it against an elite pitching staff. And they did. It's kind of that simple. They did. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means a ton. First of all, the win, the series, the sweep puts Oklahoma in first place in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Puts them in first place, which a couple of weeks ago felt, I mean, I don't want to say impossible, but a couple of weeks ago, it felt like that was a far cry from being a possibility, just with how you looked at the schedule coming up. But this team, the ceiling just continues to remain as high as it possibly can be. And every time that I feel like, as a person who follows this team closely, every time I feel like, okay, maybe it's time to bring the expectations down a notch, they get kicked right back up to the top. And the rebound from this team, as young as they are, I've always said this about this team, and always really thought, if they get confidence, watch out.
No,
if this team gets some confidence, watch out. Now, I don't know that there's anything out there that could have given them more confidence than sweeping Texas. Now, if it would have been dominant in that third game, and they held on to the lead that they built, and it was just like, I mean, maybe there's some things that you can coach off of with how Sunday's game went, but at the end of the day, it was a win. It was and they won. They've won 6 in a row. They're going to Gainesville, where Florida's won, I believe, 1 or 2 series all year at home. You go and win that series this weekend. I think you look at Oklahoma as the favorite in the field again, which is just wild considering where this team has been ups and downs wise all season, and with what they haven't had offensively, for it to just show up the way that it did in droves this week, it was shocking.
Well, I think the bigger thing for me offensively was, in addition to just the consistent hits, they're getting walks, they're going at long at bats, fouling, making those Texas pitchers work. They were getting timely hits, clutch hits. In that game 2, 5 of their 7 runs came with 2 outs on the board.
It felt like vintage Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we weren't, runners in scoring position, 2-out rallies. That's stuff we weren't seeing all year. And when you look at this pitching staff, I mean, I think that's the biggest question for me is, and I even texted this to you. I was just like, I think, and Patty even said it going into the series. She said, we're going to start Sam Landry game 1 and game 3, and probably plan to have her close out game 2. And the message of that is, we just need our bullpen to get us through 4 or 5 innings of that second game. And not only did the bullpen show up, I mean, Kirsten Deal in game 2 was phenomenal. She's phenomenal. Yeah. And she goes all 7 innings, gives up 4 hits, 2 runs. Texas was scoreless through 6 innings.
Yep.
Isabella Smith in that third game, and we're going to talk about the rest of that pitching staff in a second, but Isabella Smith goes 3 innings, no hits, retires all 9 batters she starts. And here's the thing. OU doesn't need, and I even told you this, OU doesn't need an elite second pitcher. They just need, in a series, both in the postseason and if they get to the World Series, they just need someone outside of Landry to put together a few good innings. And Deal and Smith were fantastic. I thought going in, hopefully Deal gives you 3 good innings.
Yeah.
Hopefully Isabella Smith or Audrey Lowry gives you 2 or 3 good innings. And to me, again, we haven't seen it all year, but the fact that they did it against Texas, again, that tells me, they can do that. It's in there.
Yep.
And to do it against a Texas offense that, holy cow, there's so much talent in that lineup, man.
Yeah.
There's so much talent. Yes.
Well, and that was the thing, I remember us having the conversation, who do you start in game 2? And Kirsten Deal was my answer. Now, I will take a little bit of credit for that answer,
as you should.
On the flip side of that, yes, I knew she had experience against this Texas lineup, but the success that she had in game two was not something I could have foreseen. I knew she has that in her, and we have seen that come in spots, but at for the most part, it's been kind of an up and down. Every inning is different with her, and she was nails, absolutely nails in that second game. And if she can be that, which is a high standard to hold her to, if she can be that in the postseason, I mean, sky's the limit.
If her and Isabella Smith can combine to give you like three three outings like they did this weekend, OU will win the title. It's
Yep.
it's kind of that simple. Now, will they? I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
I mean, Kirsten Deal she had pitched 2.1 innings the 2 weekends coming into the Texas series. She
Right.
pitched she threw 6 pitches against Mississippi State. 6. So it is not a foregone conclusion, but the fact that they did this against Texas was phenomenal. Then you look at OU goes up 8-0 in that third game. Isabella Smith is just making easy work of Texas lineup. She gives up a leadoff single, top of the fourth, and they pull her.
Yeah.
They insert Audrey Lowry into the game, who in her first 5 batters gives up a walk and 4 singles.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, Texas goes from down 8-0 to down 8-4. Audrey Lowry gets pulled. They insert Peyton Monticelli, which I could not have guessed. She gives up 2 more RBIs, and before the frame is even over, Texas goes from down 8-0 to down 8-6. Landry comes in, closes out the frame, then gives up a 2-run bomb in the next frame, and all of a sudden it's 8-8.
8-8. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I had to rewrite my story. I had to in the press box. And I also think, Patty Gasso doesn't normally talk after senior day. She doesn't normally talk to the media. That is normally how she approaches things. She did, and in her opening statement, explained the reasoning. And I think that was telling, because as much as it was great that OU won the game, and the tone of how we're talking changes slightly if they collapse and lose the game, they did win. So that was impressive. Landry was great to end the game. Isabella Emmerling gets the sack fly. It was interesting to hear Patty say that they wanted to get Isabella Smith through the top of the lineup, or through the lineup once.
Right.
Then they throw Audrey Lowry and Peyton Monticelli. They wanted to get them innings against a good team in a tough environment. There's a lot of ways we could talk about this, Brian, and it's probably not worth to fully dissect it. I think my takeaway was, I think the fact that Kirsten Deal pitched so well and was able to go all 7 innings changed their plan. I think the fact that Isabella Smith was so great to start game 3, I think changed their plan. And the fact that they won those first 2 games, I think it went from, man, let's just not put too much on Sam Landry, to, we can not only rest her a little bit, we can get these other pitchers in there.
Yeah.
I get it. I at least understood the Audrey Lowry part of it. I didn't really understand the Peyton Monticelli part of it.
Yeah. And
I think my mind goes to, well, even though you were up 8-0 and you had already won the first 2 games, I still don't love the decision, especially the Peyton Monticelli part of it. On the other end of it, I understand trying to see the forest from the trees and trying to see how these pitchers do. I don't know. It didn't end up killing them. They won the game. I don't think OU is going to do that kind of stuff when the games really, really matter.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is there that much to take away from it?
I just, to me, it felt like they got a little bit too cute, and because of the margin is smaller with this team. I mean, it just is, because of the lack of experience in a lot of ways. It almost bit them, but it didn't. I think the important thing that I would kind of pull away from this, or kind of like what I was left thinking, was when Isabella Smith gives up that single and they decide to pull her. I thought, in a vacuum, it was too soon, because she had played so well. On the flip side of that, though, I can see where you would want to get somebody like Audrey Lowry some reps against a team like Texas, especially since you've already secured the series. I don't know. I think going back, if the situation had been different, I'm sure they would have handled it. If it was split 1-1, like that goes way differently. I'm sure neither one of those, neither one of Lowry or Monticelli see the circle, but in the end, they did it. They did end up finding a way to pull it out. But I thought Smith was pulled a little bit too early. But again, like we're talking semantics at this point. Like it's more or less, it didn't cost him, so no harm, no foul.
I agree with you. I think my two criticisms would have been I think keep Smith in there at least a little longer.
Yeah.
I think because also from a big picture perspective, I mean, not only just that she was pitching well and that she didn't give up her first hit till the fourth inning, didn't give up her first base runner until the fourth inning, but also because you're going to need her. You're going to need to throw her in the postseason. So I think it would have been good to keep her in there a little longer. And I think playing Peyton Monticelli, because I know Peyton threw a few innings in the champ series last year against Texas, but when push comes to shove, she's not going to be in the circle. She's just not. I think those would have been my two criticisms. I would also say, I mean, I think you could certainly argue that Sam Landry should have came in immediately. If you're going to pull Isabella Smith, you immediately go to Sam Landry, especially because she didn't have to pitch game 2. Mm-hmm. I can understand the Audrey Lowry part of it, because I think all year it's like, well, she hasn't played a lot, but when she's played, a lot of the time she's looked good, and you might need her in the postseason. Sure. And I think you could say, as bad as Sunday was, now she's a true freshman. You're not going to define her whole career on one game, but it's good to have that knowledge of, hey, even with an 8-0 lead against a really good Texas team, she just didn't have it.
Right.
And Patty even said it was kind of nerves. And so I think that maybe that plays a role in the postseason of, hey, how confident do we feel throwing this true freshman in this? If it's the super regional, it's game 2 and it's a tie game midway through. Do we want to throw Audrey Lowry? Maybe it might be good to have that in the back of your head, you know?
Absolutely.
And ultimately, I agree. I think they got too cute, but they still won. They still won the game.
Yeah.
And it was a big win because now they have a comfortable lead atop the SEC standings. So that part of it's big. I think, Brian, to put a bow on all this, Patty said she was adamant. She said it more than once going into the series that this team has not peaked and that this team is going to peak. And this series is basically a whole lot of peaking. It's a weekend you can point to and say, hey, right before the postseason, we just swept. We just walloped our rival and a championship favorite and a really good team. And to me, it changes my expectations of this team a little bit. They answered questions that I had, and now we're not going to crown them yet, but
sure,
that was an impressive weekend, man.
Impressive
weekend.
You know what it does is, we talked about this beforehand, and this is like my kind of takeaway from this series. That pretty much secures you. You should be a super regional host. They should have the opportunity to host all the way through supers, and that's huge.
Yeah, really good point. That's going to do it for us here on this episode of Quick Slants. Brian, appreciate you hopping in on a Monday afternoon to recap this series. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, make sure to like and subscribe here at this OU Insider YouTube channel, or become a VIP member over at OUinsider.com today. We'll be back later this week with an episode of the Oklahoma Drill, our weekly podcast to preview OU Florida softball to end the regular season. But until then, appreciate you guys as always. We'll see you next time.